Okay, everybody. So comingsoon.net has a great article that just came out. David Koepp, or Koepp, depending on who says it, explains why Steven Spielberg ditched Indy 5. First of all, this was one of my favorite photos that came out when Crystal Skull came out, before, when it was in production, when they released a couple of stills. And I thought for sure when I saw that picture, the movie was going to be great. Yeah. Okay, we all know how that turned out. It had its moments, but for the most part, it wasn't the greatest movie in the franchise. Indiana Jones 5, David Koepp explains why Steven Spielberg ditched the project. So it's been 7 long months since it was announced that Logan's, which I loved Logan, James Mangold, I also loved Ford versus Ferrari. Everything this guy does knocks it out of the park. Would replace Steven Spielberg as director of Indy 5. And since that time, not much has been revealed about the project, but is anything ever revealed about these projects until they come up, unless it's scooped? Thankfully, former Indy 5 screenwriter and frequent Spielberg collaborator David Koepp recently sat down with Den of Geek and shed some light on the famed director's departure, which at least provides some semblance of closure for the fans. And I quote, "I tried a couple of different versions with Steven, and they all had some good stuff about them, and they all had some stuff that didn't work, which happens. But it was just very hard to have everybody come together and have all the elements, Steven, Harrison, the script, and Disney, come together all at once. It just didn't," said Koepp. It's hard to crack these scripts. What's the MacGuffin? Are you going to have Mutt come back? Are you going to have, Marion come back? Are you going to have Sala come back this time? I mean, like, who else is left to kind of shuffle the deck here? It goes on to say, obviously, Koepp couldn't reveal any details about the story, but he did reveal that the handoff to Mangold was amicable. Now, that's fine. Here's his quote here. "When James Mangold came in and Steven stepped out, that was a pretty logical breaking point for himself. It's a gracious time to step out of the door because I think the last thing a new director wants is the old director's writer. I mean, that's a drag. The last thing you need is some guy sitting around with his arms folded saying, well, the way Steven would have done it is this way." Yeah. I had one nice friendly conversation with him, and then I'm sure he wanted to be able to move on his own way. Everybody was pretty polite, I thought. Great. That's a Hollywood writer that's been at it for a long time. He's been in the game a long time, and he understands that, you just have to pass the torch to the next writer. Honestly, Spielberg never seemed all that enthusiastic about another Indiana Jones adventure. Hell, he wasn't excited to do Crystal Skull until George Lucas practically forced the project on him. At any rate, it's probably best for someone else to dust off old Indy and pump some fresh life into the franchise. Hopefully Mangold can do that. Indiana Jones 5 is still set for July 29th, 2022 release. Harrison Ford would be 81, I think, when the movie comes out. Though the date could change faster than Elsa Schneider's Allegiance. That was a good job. Who wrote this? James Ames, or Jeff Ames. Good job, man. That was a good little line at the end. I am completely on board for another Indiana Jones 5 as long as it literally is almost treated like Logan. No more old dad jokes. Let's get serious with it for this last one. Let's have the only the amount of levity that we would need, like in Raiders of the Lost Ark. Let's just have this a darker film, not dark like Temple of Doom. Let's keep him in the jungle, and let's let him go out on his own. Maybe he's persuaded one last time to go out on his own. I don't think he needs an ensemble tag along. Ray Winstone in Crystal Skull it felt like a misfire. I don't know if you need to bring back Short Round for another film, because I would say that ship has sailed, although people may want to know whatever happened to Short Round. But at the same time, it's like you're just pilfering from old films and making people feel comfortable by saying, look, who's in it? See, it's an Indiana Jones film. I think James Mangold, when you look at something like Ford versus Ferrari, it was a period piece film in the 1960s. I mean, everything looked fantastic. I mean, he really captured the 1960s. And I feel like with this, because Harrison Ford is going to be 79 when they go into production, I think, if as long as the pandemic doesn't keep kicking this thing down the road. I feel like this is going to be a really good send-off. But again, they have to keep it at the same level of maturity as Logan. And again, we do have the Young Indiana Jones Chronicles, which shows an older Indy with an eye patch. Maybe we can see him get really just beat up to the point where he loses his eye and he has an eye patch at the end before the credits roll. I mean, they could do that. I don't know if they're going to make or force, Lucasfilm is going to force the Young Indiana Jones Chronicles to be canon. Would they kill off Indiana Jones in this last film? Like they did with Logan, to kind of keep Hugh Jackman, away from the project going forward. I think there's a way to make this movie and knock it out of the park. We just have to wait and see. But they had to have learned some lessons from Crystal Skull. I mean, even Spielberg in the behind the scenes on Crystal Skull seemed so adamant that he wasn't interested in doing the film because it was going to deal with aliens and blah, blah, blah. And then, he had this one line that was just so telling in the behind the scenes where he was like, and then George came to me with this idea that they were interdimensional beings. And yeah, I mean, like he said, okay, fine, George. When he said that in the behind the scenes, I was like, dude, he knew this movie was going to be just okay. And it was just like one last hurrah for everybody to get together. But, Frank Marshall, pulled out all the stops, and so did Kathleen Kennedy producing it. Love them or hate them, they've done great work with the Bourne franchise, Jurassic Park. I mean, you name it. I mean, they're two powerhouse producers. So if they're on board again with this one, they need to let James Mangold do his thing. And we need to have Indy 5 be Logan. And I would be happy with Indiana Jones dying at the end of the film in a very, very stoic way, so that it would be so hard for anyone to come along and reboot the franchise. And let's just have video games. Let's have animations. Let's expand the universe that way, but just leave Indiana Jones as the only one who could play the character. I think that's the way to go. What do you guys think? Let's talk about it in the comments section, and we'll see you on the next one.